scientific name of this is Theobroma cacao, which literally translates to food for the gods. Cacao is not endemic to us. It has stayed in the country for some time now and has adopted, and that's why we are also claiming it as our own. It's easy to say that native cacao, but it's not native to us. I'm Christopher Fadriga, and I'm an heirloom cacao grower here in Antipoluan, Bago, Negros Occidental. Cacao basically is a forest crop. It's not endemic to the country, the Philippines. It was introduced to the country way back during the galleon trade. It was brought in from Mexico about 400 years ago. And we are happy. We were the first country to receive cacao from Mesoamerica areas. I started to learn about cacao way back about 10 years ago. I was working for a retired Japanese, Mr. Toshi Yanagisawa. He retired and was doing a farm in Cebu, and he told me, Chris, we should learn about cacao because he told me that will be the next black gold. On my own, I started to do my own personal research through the internet and found out that really the country was the beneficiary of the first cacao that came out of the Mesoamerica area. I also learned that during that time, it was the variety Criollo, which was the variety that was mostly grown in the Americas for the European market. This made me excited. The only way I would learn about Criollo is that I read that it had white beans. When I was going around the province, I would see an old tree from somebody's backyard and I would ask for a pod. And I would cut the pod open and do a bean cut test and see what the color of the beans is. Over time, we were able to collect about 22 cultivars. Here in Negros, we found several already. Farmer up in Patag has been growing heirloom cacao there. We found heirloom cacaos growing in Don Salvador, Benedicto. They're also in Pandanon, San Carlos, Murcia, sa Mercado, sa Libertad. And I saw cacao being sold for that. So I bought some and I did my own bean cut test. And surprisingly, it had white beans cacao. It came from La Castellana. So it's all over. I think it's here. Colors can be either a green that becomes yellow when it matures, or a dark maroon that becomes red-orange when it matures. But what is more important is you really do a bean cut test. You have to see the inside, the color bean. So this is a pod coming from an old tree. A bean cut test will give you an idea more or less of what you have. It's not a definite answer to the genetic. It will just give you a guide. I will start with the Criollo cacao so that you will have an idea how it would look like. The beans is always covered with white pulp, no? So that is not the color that will dictate if you have a Criollo or not. All cacao will always have this white pulp covering the seed. We will have to cut individually and see what is the color of the seed inside. And a Criollo will always be a white bean cacao. This is more or less how it will look like, no? It's white inside. That's white. Usually there's about 30 or so beans in a pod, and if you open it up and you line it and you see that it's all white, then you have a very high percentage of genes that is still Criollo. If it has more white beans than light pink or violet, then it's really leaning towards the Criollo varieties. If it's dark purple, then it's leaning to the Forastero. What you will have is this pink or a violet. This is how it will look like. Compared to a Criollo is white and this one is violet. This has more bitterness compared to this one. For this Criollo, I think the best characteristic is its flavor and aroma. For people to say that heirloom cacao is weak, I think that has no basis because I have seen cacao trees growing very near their dirty kitchen where their rice washing goes there and the smoke from their dirty kitchen. And the tree is full of buds. So I would say that it's a question of taking care of the trees. So what we did was to get scion, which is a branch from these matured trees that we found having the white beans. I would bring that here to the nursery and would graft it to a rootstock. What is a rootstock? It's a seed coming from a hybrid variety which was bred to give us the vigor of a hybrid. Grafting is just getting scion, which is a branch coming from the heirloom cacao that we want to multiply, which we have identified to be white bean cacao. And this one is the rootstock of a hybrid seeds. We will graft it and we will produce a clone of these varieties that we have identified. So we're making use of the root system of a hybrid, giving it a better survival, better productivity. When you prepare your rootstock, make sure that you leave behind some leaves in the bottom that will provide energy for the growth of our scion. We can start by just cutting off the leaves on top, and we choose a scion from the mother trees that we have, making sure that we also protect the bud. Every leaf of our stem contains a bud. You don't strip it open like that. You don't strip the leaf like that because there's a chance that you will rip off the bud. You use a sharp knife and cut off to protect the eye of the bud that's there. We make a cleft graft, which is about an inch of cleft, and we cut our scion. We use 2 to 3 eyes that we graft into the rootstock. We do a wedge of the scion and we insert it to the cleft. That's the operation that we do. All you have to do is just secure this so that over time, about 3 weeks, that will join together. We use a plastic bag to cover. What will happen is when you are watering it, you don't want the new scions to be wet because that will invite fungus problem. You have to put this, the raincoat, sang aton scion. We also use grafting tape. This is a stretchable plastic. We will wrap the joint so that it will allow it to merge together. A seasoned grafter can do a graft of about 500 to 1,000 graft a day and have a very high percentage of success. To get about 90% survival is good enough for propagation. So in 15 days, you will know if you are successful because this will remain green ang imo nga ginsugpon nga sayon. But if it's a failure, that will start to turn black. It will take about 3 weeks for a successful graft to be sure that it's going to survive. We harden it for another 2 months to 3 months. Then it's ready for planting out in the field. After 21 days, if this is successful, you just have to remove the plastic because what will happen is ang ice ini ma-activate na niya and it will start to grow. In the nursery, we have seen that a successful graft. These mother trees, aside from the scion that we need for us to graft, starts to bear fruit also. And the pods that we get, we also started to process them. And in fact, this was the pods. We entered that in the competition and that is what won us the gold. It's nice to know that you are planting something that has been recognized to have the good quality for chocolate making. We need to look for this heirloom cacao. There is a super duper cacao waiting to be discovered somewhere in somebody's backyard. There's 2 ways to do farming of cacao. You can either grow it as a commodity and trade it in the world market, or you can grow it as a niche for a niche market. This is the artisanal chocolate making. When the farmer is growing it for a commodity, then he is just basically limited to processing the beans post-harvest, then selling it to a consolidator. A consolidator needs so much to fill up 1 container van to export. You need about 50 hectares of a plantation to be able to regularly fill up a container for you to sell in the world market. Africa produces about 80% of the world production for cacao. The country, on the average, only produces about 10 to 14,000 tons of cacao beans. Our neighbor, Indonesia, Malaysia, they produce about 500,000 tons annually. We are able to sell our beans at 500 pesos per kilo, which is a very good price already for cacao beans. But if you make tableas from it, or 1 kilo of tablea, you can fetch about 1.3 to 1.5 per kilo. And if you make chocolate bars out of it, it can go as high as 3,600 to 4,000 pesos per kilo of that same beans. I guess heirloom is something that has been here, that our forefathers has been able to grow. We have been using that. It's already part of culture. The old folks would still remember how they would have chikwate served to them every morning with Carabao's milk. That here in Negros brings good memories to talk about. We are a chikwate drinking province, so perfect combination. No? We have the mascobado and we have the Carabao's milk to go with our chikwate. I think that is something that Negros can be very proud of, and that makes it heirloom for me. It's here. We have proven that Negros can produce quality cacao. Chocolates coming from these varieties that we're trying to promote is world-class. It has been recognized, and I would like to see the day when the province becomes known for its quality chocolates. Hopefully, people will start to recognize the quality of the beans that we have. So, mabuhay ang cacao growers to the country.